And together as a fighting duo, they are just so much better than everyone else in the lobby. People are running away from them.
It feels like in EU, it doesn't work. I've got one last thing.
Okay, one
EU Grimgate. EU Grimgate. And because you watch the teams on any other region, and it feels like Grimgate is the best landing spot they've ever added. Then you watch EU, and it looks so mid. It looks so mid. It looks like you're leaving with no loot because you're conned by 16 teams. It looks like everyone's coming into third party you. It looks like you can never get the bot because, again, you're getting restored reels. You're getting Prodoxy split below. You're getting the split to the left of it keying you. You've got Slurp Truck above you keying you. It feels like in EU, it doesn't work. It feels like teams are either too aggressive outside of Grimgate to just push in, and they're not scared of, the whole Peterbot and Polio thing where it's just the fear factor. And then it's not that the Grimgate team is dominating. They're like Malibu and Mustache came 75th, I'm pretty sure it was. And then what was it? Kiddo and Cheaton, I think, came 200th in round 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, Grimgate's maybe the most OP spot, and those are our two best teams coming 75th and 200th at Grimgate. What do you think is the main issue for that?
Yeah, that was actually, I'm glad you mentioned this now, because we're probably gonna overrun of time, so we won't get, because I had that as something I wanted to talk about when I was talking about the Duo Cash Cup stuff for another topic. I'm glad you bring it up now, because that is something I was curious about to see what you guys had thoughts on. Why is it that, Peterbot and Pollo are phenomenal and it's just the easiest game in the world when they're landing there and they've got that coin, but some good EU teams, are landing there and it's not that same level of dominance? Like, what is the difference here?
I think it's an easy answer, right? I think there's a couple of anomalies in this situation. Let's look at other regions, right? Just think about OCE, think about the small regions, Middle East, all this kind of stuff. You have such a massive disparity between the top to the bottom of people already, where, you're going to have a top team, they'll land there and they'll beat any other team landing there. It doesn't really matter. If you look at NA, you have a real different type of anomaly where you have just two of the best fighters in the region teamed up together, full stop, right? Like maybe the two best fighters outside of Cold in there as well. I don't know. I'm not an NA connoisseur, but they're up there, right? Of course. And together as a fighting duo, they are just so much better than everyone else in the lobby. Add to that, everyone else 50-50s the drop spot on the chest. Not always, but for the most part. Fights over fast. It doesn't seem like there's 10 teams landing there. And then you say, okay, anyone surrounding that is scared to fight that fight. So they're not going to keep pushing in and third partying like they do in EU. So that's why I think NA ends up being that way. Then they get the dash coin, they get all the loot, and they'll win a fight against anyone in that lobby. Like, the people are fucking running away from them. Like, that does not happen on any other region, because it's like they just have that fighting skill and they can just outrun anyone. And then if you think about the way they're performing in that region as well, it's like they don't even have to be that smart with the coin, because it's like, okay, we can just win a fight, get our loot back, get back in the game, go. Repeat. Bad positioning, we have a dash coin. Most other people don't have as good mobility at all. So when you look at how NA is doing to start with, you have a true anomaly of just two of the best fighters with everything given to them in order to succeed. Flip that onto EU and you have Malibu and Mustache, who kind of shit off spawn to start with. Almost never win more than 50% of their off spawns in any high level lobby. And then they usually do good out of those games. Slap on a bunch of other teams landing all around, not scared to fight, because why would you be scared to fight Malibu and Mustache off spawn with a bad track record? Then you add Fredoxy just being annoying, just third partying all the time from the split down south, and intentionally capitalizing on the fact that there's more and more players there going on, and you just have a mess. And then, okay, if they get the coin, are Malibu and Mustache great fighters? Absolutely. But do they have the ability to just wipe through a team like that, like they do in NA? No. That's just not the kind of team that they are. Obviously, they're great fighters and they can do that, but they're not incredible double kills that'll finish a fight that quickly. They're aggressive, but they're not the Peterbot and Pollo play style. So I think you have every region in a slightly different way, but for different reasons.
It's interesting what you mentioned there with the people outside of once the Grimgate fight happens initially, right? The people that come in. Right, because in the Cash Cup that happened recently, where Quanti was conning, when they'd win in the last couple, when they won, people would come in and fight. Right, people don't do that when Peterbot and Poyo are there because, like you're saying, like there's that fear factor of even with a mat imbalance, because the team that lands Grim Gate and wins it, they're usually not going to have that many mats compared to people landing around, right? There's not like really fast mats you can get there, right? Unless you're like going on the outskirts to like farm rocks and shit. So like the fact that like people in EU will come in and it's like, okay, even if Malibu and Moustache have won, we will fight them because we're going to have more mats in them, right? On NA,
500 wood, 500 brick each. Yeah, right? Fighting a guy with scraps, you know?
On NA though, it's like people know they will have more mats. And they're still like, nah, we ain't trying to fight.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because, as you said, it's like Peter and Poyo, Peterbot and Poyo have shown how OP the spot is. They've shown what insane games you can get when you get the Grimgate coin. But the NA teams don't take that as, oh, we're now going to go fight them because, as you said, they have no mats. They're probably going to be not going to be scuffed on shield, but they might have been fighting, so they might be cracked. It takes a bit of time to kill the bot. It's not the quickest bot to kill. It doesn't take the longest, but it's not the quickest bot to kill. Teams don't take that as a, oh, we're going to go fight. It's like, this gives us more time to rotate away from Grimgate. This gives us more time to get as far away as possible. And it's like, I don't know if just EU has more egos and they are just willing to grief their game to get the best loot. And NA teams are more willing to just go, okay, we can still win with our loot or at least get second place with our loot. Why would we grief our game for the coin? I wonder if that's the case, or if it's just that Peterbot and Poyo are just that good that teams are that bad that they just don't want to fight at all.
It could be all three. Yeah.
Peter and Poyo also have been like trained by several different teams, deciding 1 week, all right, we're gonna con Grimgate. And then by the end of the 6 games of the Duo Cash Cup, they're like, all right, we're not going to con Grimgate. And like that has happened repeatedly. Like Acorn Cold tried and they got dumped on. And
they were awful. They were awful.
Go back. But it seems like most people are 50-50ing Peter and Poyo, where like if you're not on a 50-50, that's going to be a total grief fest just because of how the POI is. And because they're able to win those fights quickly and then just key the heck out of people, they are so good with those dashes that I think not even they are the best fighting duo at the moment, especially given extra mobility and movement that nobody else in the lobby has unless you've just touched the water. So like they have this whole advantage where people are like, I don't want to deal with that. I have not practiced as much fighting people as Peterbot has with this dash coin. I don't want to have to deal with it. Let me get out of here. And they can have it, right? They can just have it.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's one thing that Harry mentioned there that I think is really interesting was on egos in EU, right? And I think it's just the opposite. Like I don't. This might be a controversial take, but I don't think like a lot of people off spawn have a lot of ego in EU. I just don't think they care. Like you always see this stuff in NA where people like I saw comments saying, "Oh, if Peter and Poyo came to EU, they just alpha someone off spawn." That just doesn't really happen in EU ever. And if they just lose off spawn, they'll just keep going there. It's just like people just don't care, It's like, so I think that's a continual effect we'll also see. Like these teams might just keep doing rubbish and just play that way for the rest of the season in the hope that they'll be unconned off spawn.
Yeah, it is. That is it with EU. It's like it's the lack of caring, which obviously a little bit of ego, where it's like we've got 6-0 3 times in a row in finals, but it doesn't matter because surely we can't be that bad for that long. Like surely we get good enough at some point. Like that's the thing. Is like you ask any EU player or EU person about Peterbot and Poyo, they all say they can't be that good. Like that's what you say, and it's like they're like, there's no way. Like if they're fighting this player or this player, they just can't be that good. And you ask anyone from NA about Peterbot and Poyo, they're like, we can't compete. They are that good. And it's like it's the difference. It's like I feel like they're willing to just give up and play for the best they can. Then EU is, as you said, they don't care. It's like they have the belief where it's like there's no way they can be that good. It's impossible.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me, and here's another weird sort of analogy comparison for you guys.
Oh my god, here we go.
This one's less weird. Weird. It sort of reminds me, like in terms of the EU players just like banging their heads against the wall and continuing regardless. It reminds me of when I tried to play League of Legends. And what would happen when I played League of Legends was that I was incredibly terrible and I'd play like 4 games and get wiped. And it was just like hell. I'd have 1 game where the lane matchup is perfect for me and I boss and I dominate the game. And I feel so good that it gives me this dopamine effect where I'm like, I must get this feeling again. And I imagine playing for the Queen is like that, right? Where like it's terrible to con Grimgate in EU, but the 1 game where you do get it, and things go well and you have the coin for that game, the game must feel so easy and free and good that you're like, well, it is just worth it to keep doing this. Like, I might as well, you know, like that's how I feel like it probably is for a lot of these EU teams, which is why we're just continuously seeing them going at it, even in situations where it probably doesn't even make sense for them.
No, agree. It's like if you go from landing Grimgate and having the coin to landing some other split, you're just like, you're putting every weight possible around your ankles to try and play the game. It's like, as you said, it's the easiest game of all time having the Grimgate coin. I think Kinch did a stat where it's the equivalent of having another 1,500 mats, 1,500 mats. It's the equivalent when you have the Grimgate coin. It's like, why would you give that up? And most teams, and I think I saw this as a tweet, it's like, if you could get 6 games out of 12 in the grand finals, or even 5 or even 4 games out of 12 in the grand finals with Grimgate coin, that's probably, and you get some surge or spawn, you're probably getting a better placement than any other spot.
That's what I said. That was what I said, was as like the reasoning why somebody on NA should con Peter and Poyo. Because it's like, as much as they did boss Acorn and Cold, but I thought Acorn and Cold were like tragically bad. Like I didn't even think, it didn't even feel like, like they did not look like a team that actually ever landed Grimgate before, to be completely honest with you. But like when they've been conned by Quanti and Chubbs, like, and I know the optics of it look bad when you look at how it went, but when you actually watched a lot of those spawns, like I think it should have been even, if not. Like Quanti probably should have won more often.
Yeah, it should have been
they did, right? Like in Loki should have been 4-2. And so to me, like again, if you can go 50-50 with them, like over the course of a 12-game grand finals, is 6 games with the coin enough to like have a very good tournament placement? I think yes. The problem is that we've had now though, is that what this has actually shown is that the respect that Peterbot and Poyo have with coin doesn't extend, which is the only sort of like I think negative point against my point of like it's worth it for the 6 out of 12 games, because what we saw with Quanti was when they won, people just keyed them still. And they aren't as good of fighters to deal with that, right? So maybe it is a bit harder, but I still do think, man, 6 games with the coin in grands, like for most people, unless you're already a good team with a good spot that's uncon, I think for most people, like I'd take a shot at that, man. Like that seems like a worth it gamble for me. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if anyone takes it.